Your Knicks are up 1-0 in the playoffs, win game one versus the Sixers. And Jalen Brunson played about the worst game he possibly could have, yet the Knicks still win by 7. We're going to get into the heroes of this game: Deuce McBride, Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson, and much more next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us a part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that auto download function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode. Like tonight, where technically speaking, this is our second episode of the day because we're going to publish this one late tonight in case any of you sickos want to listen to some Knicks content before you go to bed. Of course, you're going to want to. You're going to want to listen to all of it. Why would you not want to with the Knicks winning? I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. He's Gavin Shaw, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. And your favorite basketball team is up 1-0 in the playoffs. Couple scares in this game, Gavin. The Sixers went up early. I mean, the Knicks were pathetic to open this game. Just horrible play. Couldn't make any shots. They were not able to do anything to quell Joel Embiid early in this game. Things were looking real ugly. Then they make a big comeback thanks to the bench. Things were looking really good until the third quarter when things started to fall apart again. And then lo and behold, you put Deuce McBride back in the game, and our guy goes for a modest plus 37 plus minus in this game to just completely carry the Knicks to a win in his 28 minutes with great offense. The only guy that could play any defense on Tyrese Maxey, and just honestly a game-busting effort for him in this game to give the Knicks this first game win.
He was extraordinary, and the Knicks absolutely needed it. I don't know what Joel Embiid took before this game, Alex. All I know is I want some of it. Looked like a completely different person than he did in that playing game against Miami. 15 points in the first quarter. The Knicks didn't have an answer for him. And to make things worse, Jalen Brunson picked an awful time to have his worst quarter, or one of his worst quarters of the entire season. And you got to give Philadelphia a lot of credit. I mean, we talked about it. We debated how real it was coming into this. Kelly Oubre guarded him super well throughout the regular season. I thought he had a spectacular defensive game tonight. Brunson goes out, Deuce goes in. You said it, plus 37 with him on the court, minus 30 with him off the court. Started off 4 for 4 from three. Deja vu of that Sixers blowout early in the season. Embiid gets hurt. It looks serious. He ends up coming back. Not quite the same guy, but still very effective down the stretch of this game. And then Josh Hart. I mean, he was a hero last year against the Cavs, and then he was a pretty significant factor, maybe an under-discussed factor in why they lost against Miami. And the biggest thing we came away with out of that game, we've been saying it on this podcast all season long, not even the inability to make threes, the refusal to take them, went from that to hitting 3 in the final 5 minutes of this game, 2 in the final 90 seconds. The last one, completely ridiculous. Shot clock winding down, off balance, 25 feet away. And those shots, more than anything else, because Philly was scoring. Maxey was getting to the lane, and Embiid, like, you couldn't touch him without fouling him. They were scoring down the stretch. Those threes ended this game. Another one from OG Anunoby, and the Knicks were able to survive an incredible game one victory.
Yeah, it was really a case of like 80% of the game. I was like, Josh, come on, man. Like, oh, geez. Like, you're playing so tentative. Like, and it's funny. When I was talking to Keith Pompey doing the preview for this game, and we were kind of going back and forth on like guys we thought could be a factor in this series. I highlighted Josh Hart and Deuce McBride, and like with Hart, I was like, he can't look like the player from the Heat series last year. Like, it just, and if the Sixers ultimately decide to do the same thing the Heat did, which is just say, we're going to make Josh Hart beat us, he needs to beat them. And in this game, finally, right at the end of the game, right at the 11th hour, he beat them. And I mean, it was those threes. I'm not much of a yeller during games. I'm more of like a quiet, like fist bump or like a slap my knee, clap my hands kind of guy a little bit. And man, I was like yelling in my living room. I was like,
Same,
hell
same.
yeah, Josh,
Yeah,
like get those threes, man. Come on.
yeah.
Like it was such a relief to see him get those to drop and ultimately what won the Knicks this game. Now the bright side here is that I think that this is about as bad of a game as you'll ever see Jalen Brunson play. Like the decision making was terrible. His handle seemed off. His shot creation ability, like everything was. I mean, to your credit, to your point, like of giving credit to the guys on Philly defending him, sure, but like he's had much better defenders on him in the past and cooked them. And he was getting to his spots in many ways in this game, and then just coming up short or just being a quarter second off on his dribble or whatever, and it just looked really bad. I don't think we're ever going to see him play this bad again. And all those threes that Josh Hart made late in this game, you can pretty much bank that in future games in this series and in this playoffs, Jalen Brunson's going to make those, or Dante DiVincenzo is going to make those, who also had a bad game today. So the fact that the Knicks came out of this game and still won by 7 points, I'm riding pretty high coming out of this game, man. Like even if they had lost, I was going to say like, then it becomes excuse making. Oh, this is as bad as it could get, whatever. Like, don't worry, next game they'll be better. And then they just got to steal one in Philly, and then you're right back on track, and blah blah blah. But considering that they actually pulled the win out, I'm riding high right now. I feel fantastic about the Knicks' chances after this game.
Yeah, look, I think I guess I'll stick by what I said. I think some of what Philly did is real, and like you can go back to the regular season. Brunson obviously had 2 incredible scoring games against the Sixers, and then 2 games where he was really inefficient. Our buddy Benji Ritholtz posted the stats. Brunson, I'm going to pull it up right now, but on the year, Oubre guarded him for something like 15 minutes, and in those 15 minutes, like he actually did defend him about as well as anyone in the NBA did this season. And I thought, like, here, 16:45 a game time, Brunson 5 of 16 for 4 turnovers, and that carried over to this game a little bit. And I thought the mistake Brunson was making that, and this is a hard balance. Like he kept trying to put Oubre in jail, which usually works so well, but Oubre did a great job. And I think this is all Nick Nurse's coaching, like just contesting from over the top every time he do that, and he continued to get a hand on the ball. Maxey was doing the same thing, chasing over screens. Batum was doing the same thing, chasing over screens. But Brunson also just missed some shots in the first half that he'd normally make. And I think he got out of rhythm early, and it was pretty clear he started pressing, started putting pressure on himself. Might have been a case of being in such an incredible rhythm and then taking a week off, losing his legs a little bit. Like he was short on a lot of his shots. The way he started the second half was excellent. Like had a coast-to-coast lay, big sidestep 3, like snake the dribble on a pick and roll to hit an elbow jumper. Like it definitely got better as it went along. And I thought late in this game, like over and over again, he just made the right decision to get off the ball. Like that late OG Anunoby 3, like you can zoom in on that play. There are 3 Sixers all around him. It's because Brunson rejects the screen. Philly panics. 3 guys pan over. You're rarely going to see a shooter of OG Anunoby's caliber, and the fact that he is kind of the Knicks' second option nominally right now, that wide open for a 3, and that's all Jalen Brunson's gravity. So he still affected this game in major ways. I'm with you. I think that's a fantastic sign for the Knicks. I still think the biggest question in this series continues to be Joel Embiid's health. He looked like a very different guy after throwing it to himself off the rim. Like to be clear, much better than what we saw from him against Miami. Also, not the same dude he was at the beginning of this game, which essentially looked like the version of himself he was the first 30 or so games of this season. Like whether it's this version, whether it's the Miami version, whether it's the version at the beginning of the game, I think that's going to affect things a lot. But the Knicks found a lot of stuff that worked, Alex, and we can continue to get into it as we go through this on Locked On Knicks. But first, we wanted to tell you about our good friends over at Monopoly. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your heads up, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friend's money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone, anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. So much to do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. Make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball. Charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests in tournaments to get rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play.
And today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. And if I got to say, I'm kind of a last minute tickets guy. I'm kind of considering after this game, seeing the energy in the Garden. I knew it was going to be there. I've been in the Garden for a playoff game. It's different, but man, I kind of want to go for the next game, and I might or I might not. I don't know. It makes podcasting a little hard if I go to a game and then have to come home and record and everything. However, if I'm going to, I think I'm going to go hit up the Game Time app because Game Time really is the best equipped app for when you've kind of slept on getting tickets and need to just get them at the last minute. They have last minute deals where you could save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. They have flash deals where you can save even more with exclusive in app deals on select seats ahead of a game or event. And they have zone deals where you can save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. And don't worry, too, you're going to get seat views as well. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. So you know that you're making a good choice and you're getting your money's worth because certainly trying to buy playoff tickets to a Knicks game, every cent counts at this point of the year. So if you want to check it out for yourself and maybe get into the building for game 2, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Gavin, we're back in, continuing to talk through this big game 1 win for the Knicks. Knicks up 1-0 over the Sixers. You love to see it. Now, granted, this is of course what the Knicks are supposed to do, is the 2 seed beating the 7 seed at home. In theory, they're supposed to win the next game too, and then things are following as they should at that point, because when you have home court advantage, you're supposed to win all your home games and then you win the series. So we'll see how things go in the next game, obviously. But for now, I want to talk a little bit about, you were mentioning Joel Embiid. I think that you can't really mention Joel Embiid in this game without mentioning Mitchell Robinson as well. 8 points, 12 boards for Mitchell Robinson, 7 of those offensive, 4 blocks, 1 steal. For as much as we've given Isaiah Hartenstein his shine this year and his praise for being as good as he is, man, this was vintage Mitchell Robinson in this game. He really, really affected this game in a little over 30 minutes. And there was no question in my mind he was the guy to close this game with, to play most of the minutes against Joel Embiid. And I think that's going to happen throughout this series because he has Joel Embiid's number in a way that very few people do. And Embiid still managed to get his to a degree in this game, obviously, like we noted in the first half before the pass to himself dunk and all that, and going out for the remainder of the first half, like he was having his way a little bit, but Mitch was clearly bothering him more than Hartenstein was. And in the second half, Mitch was especially bothering him more than Hartenstein was, and playing all in all pretty clean defense on him. Like Embiid went through a bit there where he was kind of just getting foul calls left and right. And one of them, it didn't look like it was at first, but then, on closer inspection, Deuce did kind of catch his arm on a reach in. There was another one that was a little more suspect than that, where he got a foul call late. But Mitch, to his credit, I thought just did such a good job of fronting him, turning him into essentially a perimeter player. Like Embiid, once that injury happened, there was a lot of what we saw against Miami where he kind of was relying more on being on the perimeter, trying to get up threes, trying to affect the game from out there rather than trying to get all the way inside, which should be his forte as, a true skilled 7-footer. But Mitch just didn't really make that possible for him and just beat him up at every opportunity on the boards. And I thought this was one of Mitch's best games of the whole season. Yeah. It was just saying a lot considering how good he was before he got hurt earlier this year, but he really came in and it was pure vintage Mitchell Robinson in this game.
Oh, I'm so with you. He was. I'm going to call it a heroic performance with zero irony in there. Like this is a game when you look back on Mitchell Robinson's career, especially if the Knicks end up making a run to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like you look at as a Knicks Hall of Fame game from him, and I just want to, the stats don't even though the stats are good, they don't totally reflect it. Like let's just go through all the big plays he had. Like finally, like after I thought he had a little bit of a shaky start, not really defensively, but offensively, like had that wide open dunk at one point that he just botched and somehow ended up going off the front rim, like wasn't really killing it on the glass. B-ball Paul was scoring on him, and then something flipped. And he had the putback slam. He had a poke away on Joel Embiid that ended up leading to a turnover for Philly. A huge offensive rebound in heavy traffic, kick out to Deuce. That was Deuce's third or his fourth three. I think that was the sidestep one that Deuce hit. Maybe my favorite play of the game that wasn't one of those Josh Hart threes. When he swatted Maxey, landed inbounds, saw the ball going out of bounds, jumped up, caught it, chucked it off Maxey. I mean, he had the athleticism to do that as a rookie. He didn't have the IQ to do that as a rookie. Like that is something that you pick up watching Jalen Brunson, watching Josh Hart every day and say, you know what? I want in on that action. That was extraordinary. Like came out of that second quarter to a standing ovation. And that's what I love about MSG. Like they recognize that this guy that maybe had like 3 rebounds, 2 points and a block in that stretch. Like, no, that's the guy. Like he's making the difference right now. Had a few more putbacks. I love the play where him and Embiid both ended up on the ground. It was kind of a BS jump ball, led to a Maxey three. But just the fact that he was fighting to that extent, and then the 2 free throws down the stretch. Like I go back to the Cleveland game last year. I go back. What was the Bulls the other week where they were hacking down the stretch of that game, and he made them he misses every free throw except for the ones that matter the most. It was awesome. I'm running out of breath, Alex. I'll toss it back to you, but I can't say enough good things about Mitchell Robinson. And the fact that like literally when we needed him the most is when this version of him made its return. Like it's awe-inspiring stuff.
Yeah, it feels very Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? Like when we
Yes,
needed him
yeah.
most, he returned.
I was thinking
The opposite
he was
of
using
the
the iceberg for 50. Who's
right.
his Appa? Is Mark? Can we get Mark Berman's face photoshopped on an Appa if someone wants to do this for us?
That might work pretty good. That would be
okay.
his, yeah. And Oppo, relax.
Then then Berman would really be the bus driver at that point.
There you go. He is the bus himself.
Or Berman's the bus. Yeah, legend. Shout out.
But yeah, man, I'm with you. Like everything about, everything about his game was just fantastic. Even just getting the pep back in those blocks too. The one on Reed on the side
Yes.
where I didn't know that Reed was a 3-point shooter, or maybe
there was 2 seconds left on the shot clock. That's why.
Okay, I guess that was it. Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say that was a bizarre way to
Yeah.
for that possession to end up. But like Mitch, just vintage Mitch, gets the lift and just gets all the way up there, blocks I don't think Reed is a true 7-footer, but like a 6'10" player's shot over there. I mean, just truly impressive stuff. Like I loved everything out of Mitch. I also loved everything out of Bojan Bogdanovic in this game. And I thought that he really made a difference for the Knicks in that second quarter as well. Deuce was going off, which was huge for them. Deuce had the 13 points in the second quarter, but Bojan came in, hit a couple threes, had 6 points in that quarter as well, 5 boards, and played the whole second quarter. And I thought that, man, like this, it felt so good. I feel so good for beating the Bojan Bogdanovic drum for the last like 2 months now, because this is exactly what we've needed out of him. Like just that extra touch of scoring, like on a night when Jalen Brunson didn't have it, to get 13 extra points out of him. And, he cooled off a little bit down the stretch and ended up with a final line of 4 for 12, but hitting 3 of 6 of your threes on a day when Dante DiVincenzo just did not have it, on a day when Jalen Brunson didn't have it, is huge. Like that's a huge contribution. And the Knicks got exactly what they needed out of him. Props to him. I know there was a report of him getting his like wrist looked at over this break as well, possibly a wrist scope, and getting things kind of assessed for potential offseason work or whatever on it. But to come in and do what he did and play physical, there was still some defensive deficiencies and whatever, but they also kind of found this perfect defensive matchup for him and Nick Batum, like the only player on the court that's just as old and slow as him, to throw him on and just have him shadow Nick Batum so he could come over and sort of, cheat over for a soft double for a second and then still find his way back to Batum with time to spare instead of getting there too late. Very helpful. So if they basically match his minutes with Batum and maybe a little more, he's going to give you that extra offensive punch that you need. And it was so needed in that second quarter for the Knicks to come all the way back and take that lead. And he was perfect for it.
Yeah, he was. I mean, it saved him and Deuce. Like you can't phrase it any other way. It saved the game, and I love that Bojan's instinct when he came into the game was not to just immediately take a crazy three. Like the first points he got was a head down drive right into Embiid's body to get to the line, and the Knicks just needed that confidence. And I can't take the same credit as you. I was out on him at a certain point, and until we found out Randall was out for the year, and then it was like, all right, you don't have another option. And I thought the way he played in basically 4 of those final 6 games was a good indicator that things were finally clicking and he was confident. And I like Tibbs's deployment of him at times. I almost wanted him out there more than Hart. Obviously, that before Hart started, just totally cooking down the stretch of this game, but just big shots. I mean, the banked in 3, then hit a deep one in Nick Batum's eye. Posting up Tyrese Maxey, made one jumper, it was fouled on another. Like if the Knicks can get to that switch and use him and Brunson in a screening game, that's a really nice way to punish Maxey anytime that he's on Brunson, because he's just no match for Bojan. He's just too big. Had a dime to Deuce through a whole lot of bodies in transition. Big plays, big moments for Bojan Bogdanovic. Alex, I think we got to wrap things up talking a little bit more about Deuce, a little bit more about Hart, comment on Dante, comment on iHeart real quick, and finally OG Anunoby, who had his moments in this game. I still don't think he's quite healthy. I'm going to tell you why. We're going to get into that next on Locked On Knicks.
But first, we're going to let you guys know about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less than on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. And you can get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey, and more MLB entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Prize Picks has something for every sports fan, from basketball and hockey to even League of Legends and everything in between. So you can pick LeBron, you could pick Connor McDavid, you could pick Francisco Lindor, the Mets playing a little better. Maybe you pick Juan Soto and the Yankees, all in the same entry. You can do multi-sport entries. It's very fun. Totally different way to play fantasy sports. And of course, who doesn't love still getting to play fantasy sports during the postseason? So if you want to check it out for yourself, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, Gavin, we're back in to keep talking through this game. And yeah, you said it, man. Let's talk about I think we got to talk about both the point guards, right? Like Deuce McBride and Jalen Brunson a bit more. Deuce, I mean, first off, the two are linked now, because what was hilarious was, I don't know why Jalen Brunson of all players got the post game interview from MSG in this one. Maybe I wasn't watching ESPN,
Yeah,
so
so
maybe they
Josh
stole Deuce.
Hart did the ESPN one.
Oh, so nobody talked to Deuce. Like, what are you doing at this point? Like the guy comes in, saves the game. So MSG gets a hold of Jalen, and he's getting interviewed by Rebecca Harlow, and she was like, what did you think about, like what won this game? And Jalen Brunson literally just said Deuce McBride. That was it. Like, all he said was Deuce McBride.
If it wasn't for the Josh Hart threes, I wanted to open this pod with our teas just being Deuce.
Yeah, seriously. It got to the point, the chants were getting so loud. I watched ESPN for the first half, and then I watched MSG for the second, so that I could have Breen and Clyde, just not together.
It's funny, I did the opposite, so we were locked in.
That's so funny. Well, you could give me the notes on the first half later. I'll give you the notes on the second half.
Yeah, we'll do.
But yeah, it was just like Gus Johnson literally had to be like, no, folks, they're not booing, they're deucing. Like, they're every time he touched the ball, it was just the entire arena was going crazy. But props to him, man. I mean, I was talking to Keith, prior to this game, for our preview. I mentioned earlier, I talked about Deuce as well. And my whole thing with Deuce was, I was like, this is going to be a proving ground for him. Like, this is kind of where we see if he's I don't mean this in like a crap talking way, but it's the truth. Like if he's got a little more metal for the postseason than like Quentin Grimes did last year, for example, like Grimes had a lightning hot like second half of last year, was hitting tons of threes, whatever, hit the postseason and was still getting respected for that, but then wasn't hitting them and went down to like became like a 25% 3-point shooter during the playoffs. And you know, the Knicks needed a few more of those during that Heat series, certainly, and didn't get them out of him, although it was a lot of responsibility to put on him. But I was kind of like, Deuce had a similar situation this year where he had a really hot second half of the season with a lot more responsibility with all those injuries and everything. But was that going to translate to the postseason? And man, did it. Like hitting 5 of 7 of your threes, all of them high leverage, all of them meaning life or death for this team in this game, because each time that he came in the game, the Knicks were floundering. Like he comes in the first half, they're down. By the time that the half was over, they're up by, what did they end up? Like up by 10 at the half, something like that.
Yeah,
12.
somewhere around there.
It was something like that. They end up by double digits. And then second half, he comes in, that double digit lead has been completely coughed up by the starters, who just as a unit were horrendous in this game. And Deuce comes back in with the weight on his shoulders again and just comes through again in the second half. I can't say enough about how good he was in this game. And like, not just from the making threes perspective, but from the running offense perspective, from the, dribble penetration perspective, making layups. Like he just playing fantastic. The only guy that could play good defense on Tyrese Maxey the entire game. And he did everything in this game. I cannot say enough about the kid. Like, big ups to Deuce McBride, man. Like he stepped up on the biggest stage. And when all the other guys you count on in the Knicks were not performing, he did, and he won them the game.
I think you nailed it. I'd be lying if I said I expected this, just because it does feel like the ascension process is all right. Like make a leap in the regular season, take your lumps in the postseason, then the next year come back and have a big postseason. And he's ahead of schedule. It is a testament to the Knicks player development staff. I mean, just like let's zoom out, like 10,000 foot view right now. You look at what Deuce McBride has become when he was just a non-entity, scared to shoot his first year in the NBA, mostly scared to shoot last year until it got hot, like a little bit at the end of the season, like made zero impact. Like they were a disaster anytime he got in that Heat series when the Knicks needed him after quickly got out, at least on the offensive end of the floor. And then to go from someone who'd never hit 30% of his threes in a season to one of the most accurate shooters in the league, you had to be thinking, all right, like, does this actually carry over? And I think part of my doubt for the Knicks in this series, and I didn't make an official pick. I was really, really torn on it. Was does Deuce translate? Does Hart translate? Does DiVincenzo translate? And Deuce, to your point, I mean, the first 3 hits, they're down 32-19. Part of it was certainly the shock of Embiid getting hurt, and Embiid only playing 2-3 minutes in the quarter. The Knicks win that second quarter 33-12. The Sixers, I mean, the first and the third quarter, the Sixers won by combined 24 points. That kept them in it. That gave them a chance to be within striking distance late. And it wasn't just that he was scalding hot from 3. Got 2 different layups in this game, both of which like a drive on heel to get to the line, and then a layup like midway through the fourth quarter. Just big plays. And like, not all the threes were like, it wasn't just catch and shoot wide open like that one OG one was. Like, had the pull up 3 in transition to cap the 12-2 run, the sidestep one off the Mitchell Robinson rebound. It was extraordinary. He was a stud. And I think, Alex, by the time this series is over, like whatever the closing game is of this series, you're going to see him out there for 35 minutes because the Knicks just don't have an answer for Maxey outside of Deuce. Tibbs can make some adjustments. They might involve keeping a big closer to the rim and trying OG Anunoby on Joel Embiid if Embiid is mostly going to play away from the basket. I think it is largely going to be Deuce getting that matchup. And you might see Donte DiVincenzo's role minimized, even though he made some big shots at different points in this game. It just feels like Deuce is the player for this series. And we weren't like coming in. That was one of the greater bits of discourse, like just how much could you play him? And they're going to have to play him a lot. He's not going to shoot like this every game, but he just has to be out there.
Yeah, well, because he's always a positive no matter what. I mean, just the defense alone just means he's going to be a positive on the floor. It's very similar to like, there's going to be comparisons
to Anunoby, kind of, right? It's a guard version of Anunoby.
Sort of. I was going to say Emmanuel Quickly, similar vibes though. Like I was going to say, I think there's going to be comparisons between Deuce and Quickly for at least the next couple years, until quickly's firmly in the rearview mirror of like, okay, yeah, it's been a while since he was in a Knick uniform, but like even if he hadn't shot the way they did in this game, like the impact still would have been there. Maybe he wouldn't be a plus 37, but he would have at least been like a plus 20 in this game, if even if not making all those shots, because like he again, played the only viable defense on Tyrese Maxey. Every other person, Anunoby included, was just dumbfounded by him. I mean,
Yeah.
Anunoby, I don't know if it was fear of further foul trouble for like the whole game after he picked up 2 fairly quick fouls or what, but I mean, he was like he may as well have been a traffic
I don't
cone.
think it's a good matchup for him. Like
No.
I think a big part of the logic of putting him on Maxey is he's the one guy, maybe like one of 5 guys in the NBA you can put in that pick and roll with Embiid, and he can switch on to Embiid and he can guard Maxey credibly. But we saw even in the first game they played, like Maxey had a lot of success against him. It's just like as extraordinary of a defender as Anunoby is, just hard for any guy who's 6'8" to stick with a 5'11" jitterbug like that. Like it's a challenge. And I to that point, like just getting skinny around screens, like Deuce is the only guy who just physically who can do that.
Yeah, for sure. But I want to talk a little bit about Jalen Brunson and about early game strategy in this game too, before we close out here.
Mm.
And I thought it was a little concerning, the Knicks' approach early in this game, and then even to start the second half a bit, which is what kind of drove them back into the hole after finding their way out. And I feel like it has to do with they're trying a little too hard to just get Brunson going early. And I feel like maybe if Brunson had made a few more of the shots, then maybe that changes the calculus a little bit, because then maybe they were like, okay, we get Brunson going, we start drawing, that sort of attention from the defense, and then everything else is going to fall into place with cuts and whatever. But it just seemed like from the beginning, it was like everything was designed just to get Brunson the ball. Everything was designed just to find a shot for him, and then the shots weren't going down, and it seemed like the Knicks had no other plan other than just, all right, well, let's try that again, but hopefully it goes in this time. And that was just kind of their whole offense for the first, like, I don't know, 6, 7 minutes of this game, where they went down like, I think what was the maximum they went down early in this game? Like 14 or
They were
something?
down 32-19, I think was the biggest
Yeah.
deficit.
I mean, it was just like it got real ugly there before
Yeah.
before you got the reserves in, and then things got different. And even at the end of like the second half, or sorry, the second quarter, and then the second half too, actually, with Brunson out there, like with Deuce and with Bogey and with guys like that, things changed a little bit. But with the starters, that just seemed to be the mission. Seemed like they weren't trying that hard to get Dante going, which is why I feel like he sort of had a subpar game. I don't know. I mean, I'm of a firm belief. I don't think that Brunson was necessarily getting terrible shots early in this game. I thought he was maybe leaning a little too hard into trying to draw fouls rather than just trying to finish plays, which was part of the problem early. But like the spots he was getting to were not out of the ordinary for him. Like I don't think that he was having a hard time finding where he wanted to go. I think I think they just need to have a better plan in place for if this happens again. I'm not confident that it will. Like I think that he's never going to have another game as bad as this in the playoffs this year. But I do think that there was a little bit of a situation here where the Knicks didn't have a plan B early in this game, and it really bit them. And luckily, they were bailed out this game. But like, if Deuce didn't play quite as well as he did, like they would have lost this game. And it still doesn't change the fact that like they shouldn't be content with this, and they should have a better game plan for early on in next game.
Yeah, I think Brunson was pressing a little bit. And I think your point on him trying to draw fouls, that to me is the nail on the head. Like that is exactly what he was looking to do. What I was maybe less skillfully trying to get at when I said he's trying to put defenders in jail, because you saw him over and over again attempting to bait contact. And honestly, like I didn't think there were like maybe you go through the film like millisecond by millisecond, but I don't think there were a lot of missed calls. Like I thought Philly like did a good job saying, no, you're gonna have to hit shots. And then Brunson got better and better in that as this game got along. And I look at that pull-up jumper he hit like with 4 minutes left. And like, those are the types of shots he's going to have to get to, especially as this game went along. Like Embiid, this was our big discussion coming in, was stepping up and blitzing off the pick and roll, looked so much more mobile after that injury. But even a little bit before it started sinking back further, like that pull-up jumper is going to be there for Brunson. He's going to have to get away from Oubre and Batum. And part of doing that is mixing it up. Like, he started rejecting the screen more and more in the second half, which is something he's great at. And that started fooling them a little bit. He had a layup on a backdoor cut. Like, he's going to have to find different ways to get offense, because Philly, as often happens in the playoffs, like you focus all your attention on taking away the other team's best players, bread and butter. I have 3 quick final points, and then I'll let you send us off, Alex. But the Knicks finished this game with 23 offensive rebounds. I mean, that is an extraordinary number against the team with Joel Embiid and some athletic wings. 5 for Hartenstein. One area where Brunson shined, a lot of them were his own misses, but he had 5. Josh Hart had 4, including one big one down the stretch. Mitchell Robinson finishing this game with 7. If Embiid continues to be limited, that's the way the Knicks can really hurt Philly. They win this game despite shooting 39% from the field, and it's because they hit 46% of their threes, 82% of their 28 free throws, and all those offensive rebounds. On Hart, 4 for 8 from distance. I go back to that stretch where Brunson was out for 4 or 5 games with that injury that we thought was going to end his season. The confidence Hart developed in that time where you and I were like losing our minds after every game. Just because he was starting to take threes. I remember that Mavs game. He kind of just had a like F it attitude. He's like, there's literally no one else on the court. I need to dribble up and take pull-up threes occasionally. He mentioned in the post game on ESPN, he spent this whole week taking shots. It was obvious coming in that Nick Nurse was going to dare him to hit. You wonder if Philly shifts their strategy, if they say we're not going to blink. We're going to bet you can't do that twice. He's not going to have to go 4 for 8 every game. Has to keep taking them. Has to keep making them. Ultimately, the difference down the stretch. OG Anunoby, I'm curious your thoughts on this. I didn't think he was quite 100% still. I said it in the last game of the season. I thought he looked lethargic. Had some good moments in this one, but just 4 rebounds, 1 steal, no blocks. Didn't have quite the same verve. A bunch of his shots until that big 3 late were short. Was trying to dunk on people, so that was a good sign, but I still don't think he's quite back to the peak version we had in that initial 12-2 run after they traded for him.
I think he still has a little bit to go. You know, I thought he looked pretty good in this game to me, honestly, other than the not being able to check Maxey, which I think colors a lot of, you know, what happened in this game for him. Like, I just thought that was a bad matchup for him on that end. And then on the offensive end, I didn't hate what he was doing. Like, you know, he did get out and get a nice dunk at one point. You know, he was aggressive trying to get to the hoop. He took a couple of his little like pull up middies, which are my least favorite thing that he does. Because I just feel like that's the least effective use of his skill set. Because he's not good at them and he loves them, which is just really frustrating. But other than that, you know, made the big 3 late. Like, I'll take it. You know, I don't think he's going to necessarily fill up the stat sheet every game, but I do think that they need to find a better way to utilize him on defense in this next game. If I were Tibbs, I know this is like bold as hell, but I would probably bring Dante off the bench next game. Like, start Deuce out there on Maxey, set that tone early, let OG like ball hawk off the ball on either Oubre or Harris, who they didn't seem too interested in having be like super like active participants and on offense in this game, and just kind of play it that way. And let OG cook off the ball a bit, you know, ball hawk a bit, get those transition opportunities so he can go out there and get some dunks and stuff. Like, I think that would be a better way to utilize his skill set on defense, which then could set the tone for his offense a little more and things will look good. But all in all, I mean, I think it was just, yeah, he just got caught flat footed too many times by Maxey, who, like you said, is so twitchy, so quick. He's like one of the fastest, you know, perimeter players in the NBA. For as good of a perimeter defender as OG is, he's going to do better against your Jason Tatums of the world than he is your Tyrese Maxeys of the world. And, you know, the Sixers don't have one of those guys. So utilize your all world defender a different way and let him, you know, just do the other things he does well, like play well off ball and, you know, influence the game that way. Have him help down low onto Joel Embiid. You know, if he's on a Tobias Harris, he's going to have more opportunities to do that, to come in, get one of those like from behind blocks that he's pretty good at. I think that would just be a better way to use him. So I'm with you, like, in that things didn't look quite right. I don't know that it's necessarily anything with him conditioning wise, and so much just they didn't come in with a great game plan for OG in this game, and I think they just need to utilize him better.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you have anything else to add, though, I think we can probably wrap up because I'm sure we're going to talk about more of this tomorrow as we get ready to go into game 2 on Monday. So for Gavin, I'm Alex. This has been Locked On Knicks. Thank you all for listening to this show and for rocking with us this season. We got more games coming up and hopefully a long postseason run here. So keep those notification bells on. Keep the auto download on. We're going to have plenty of episodes for you guys coming up, including a preview of game 2, the recap of game 2, and whatever else we can come up with after that, which I'm sure it won't be too hard. So until next time, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.